Hi, my name is Renee Tsielepi, and I'm going to take you through a journey of change at a travel organization. The organizational size is around 2,000 people. There are also 12 Scrum teams that we worked with to do this program. The initial state of the system was it was old and monolithic. It was pretty much a static dinosaur of a system. It hadn't been updated or upgraded in around 20 years. The organization itself was also incredibly hierarchical. We had different chairs that we had to sit on depending on the level we were at in the organization. I was really lucky. My chair had arms and it could swivel. It was an interesting setup. Needless to say, IT and business weren't allowed to even communicate with each other. There was no collaboration going on. All the stuff that was delivered was never fit for purpose. IT was driving the product vision and priority. We also had a concept of no teams. There wasn't a single team in the organization. The developers worked by themselves on multiple projects simultaneously. They could only dream about what cross-functional co-located teams were like. There was a large amount of technical debt in the organization. Around 80% of the time was spent fixing bugs. There was this huge urgency for us to upgrade the system and fast because it just wasn't coping for our clients today and the demands that we had from our customers. The first thing we did was create a scalable reference model to allow us to find out any of our organizational impediments and destroy those so that we could scale and swarm on that project. We created that scalable reference model, which was consisted of these co-located, self-functional, highly productive agile teams that worked together really well. They experimented, they came up with ideas and hypotheses, they threw stuff away sometimes, but they also delivered really valuable stuff. Once I had that scalable reference model in place, I scaled the teams, but simultaneously, I needed to look at the scope and size of this program. There were around 49 areas of change that were needed. I couldn't go with a big bang because we were doing 250 million searches through our APIs every single day. We got off to a bit of a rocky start, to be fair, because I hadn't made that clarity clear for everyone. I wanted to go fast because I knew it was so urgent to be done. I hadn't stopped and planned. Luckily, I had an excellent wingman who kind of gave me this really small little nudge in the right direction. Okay, who am I kidding? He beat me into submission, right? But it allowed me to stop and plan and create that clear path for everyone. We looked at the 49 different systems and looked at slicing it vertically all the way through to create that single backlog that we could all work on with that single vision. The next thing we did was scale the Scrum. We created 12 teams and allowed them to self-organize into 12 teams. We had 4 different scrums or streams that we had working together to allow for us to deliver this program. The teams were pretty stable and cross-functional, and we really looked at bringing the work to the teams. The teams were T-shaped, but it wasn't perfect. We had a large breadth and depth of knowledge. However, there were some specialist skills we didn't have enough for each and every team, like Salesforce skills or database skills. So occasionally, we did have to steer the work into a certain direction of 1 or 2 of the teams. But we also mitigated those problems by allowing the developers to pair together to cross-train with the knowledge. We also worked with some external suppliers. One of the suppliers we worked with wasn't even Scrum, but they implemented Scrum and worked to our cadence. We introduced them into our Scrum of Scrums and allowed us to work really closely together and trade off features and prioritizations as needed. This meant we didn't have to build out stub services unnecessarily, which was a big saver for us. The most important thing that I had to implement there was an executive action team to support those teams. So we did. We created an executive action team that destroyed the impediments. They also owned the transformational backlog. From an impediments perspective, what we did is, if the teams couldn't resolve the impediments, that bubbled up to the Scrum of Scrums. That in turn bubbled up to the Scrum of Scrums. And in turn, if that couldn't be resolved, it bubbled up to the EAT. So we had our bubble up charts over there where the impediments would be allocated. That was allocated to individuals within the EAT, and those impediments would be destroyed pretty swiftly. The EAT used to meet daily. We used to have our own goals as well as our backlog. We also rolled up all the goals of all of the teams that we were working with, also the EAT's goals, and had them visible for the entire organization over there. This allowed transparency and visibility. Sometimes I felt that working in the EAT, I was cruising an altitude of around 35,000 feet, and someone came to me with a problem, and all of a sudden had to nosedive down to 5,000 feet to try and understand the problems. I didn't know the problems, I didn't understand them, I wasn't the person who had all the information. The knowledge workers were the people with the information. So wherever possible, I encouraged other members of the EAT to push that decision-making down to where the information lay. And that really allowed the teams to move faster, to make those decisions, as long as they had the organizational clarity and the competence to make those decisions. With regards to the program, we released a walking skeleton pretty early on so that we could get a lot of feedback. A lot of the work we did behind the scenes was very manual because we only released one product with one customer. But that early, frequent feedback was really important because it allowed us to test out the application and see how well it was working. So what changed? Well, we went from a Waterfall-ish organization to ScrumatScale. We went from 43 projects in progress to a single backlog with swarming. With the introduction of the EAT, we created excellent decision latency, as well as impediment destroyal. We went from around 80% technical debt to minimal technical debt, and from no coordination between the business and IT to full coordination and a single goal and a single vision. I learned a lot in this time. Not everyone's going to love what you're doing. Not everyone loves change. And there's still people today that want to see it fail. But focus on the ones that want success, because the others will follow. Some, maybe they just never will. But also measure, because perception doesn't always match reality. And when you measure, you just take the emotion out of it. And with regards to the hierarchy in the organization, well, today, everyone has the same chair with arms and it swivels. Thank you.